Welcome, everybody, to the Creator Tutorials podcast. Really excited we got on John today. John, would you go ahead and give yourself an introduction?
Hey there, this is Chen. I'm the author of a book called Engaging Virtual Meetings, and I spend the majority of my time designing, producing, speaking at, and MC at virtual and hybrid meetings. Thanks for having me, Alex.
Of course, yeah, really excited to have you on. I host a lot of virtual meetings, and you host a lot of virtual meetings, but give the audience an understanding, what is a virtual meeting?
Well, a virtual meeting could be any of the things now where you're meeting online, right? I have a friend has a great quote. After 6 feet, you might as well be 600 miles. So as soon as you're out of eyesight or earsight of somebody, then sometimes a virtual meeting's better. And I've met virtual people in my own city because if you have traffic, an 18-minute drive can sometimes turn into an hour and 20, and a virtual meeting is just so much better and easier with that. And of course, the funny part about that, Alex, is prior to March of 2020, we had already been experimenting about how to teach people how to do great virtual meetings and how to do team building over virtual, but nobody would buy it. So the capabilities have been here for decades, Alex. But of course, March in 2020 was like the thing we needed as humans to get over that virtual hump.
Yeah. And that was my intro into kind of online virtual events, was COVID, was the lockdown. People couldn't go to in-person meetings. But give me a basis. I really want to talk about what makes a great virtual event. You're an expert in that, but what type of events are you hosting, engaging, and producing?
Anything was work meetings. Even prior to COVID, or when I have teammates, we were meeting virtually again for that traffic problem as well as getting more work done efficiently. But the things that really need production, like as a producer, are these big meetings, conferences, summits, and masterclasses are some of the other things that I present. I have been a director of producing. And for instance, one of them was a company had an all hands meeting. It was 120 people. They had met in person. They wanted to meet in person again. The company says, no, we don't have the budget to do that. So they came and did it virtually. I think of the most extreme example, Alex, is that Training Magazine had the only 100% live conference in the training industry. It was 5 days, 7 hours a day, 150 sessions. And that's really on the far side. And the best part about it is that there were up to 200 people working behind the scenes to make it feel engaging for the 1,200 who attended.
Wow. Massive meetings. And I really want to get into kind of the technical and the tools that you use to do these larger meetings. But start us off here. What makes a really good virtual event, right? What makes a really good engaging virtual event?
Well, the number one thing, Alex, is that if you want engagement, then engage. It sounds simple, but many speakers come out there and they think they got to fill all the air. If I gave you 60 minutes and you were 80% of the world, Alex, you would say, oh, I'm going to talk for 45 minutes and I'm going to do Q&A for 15. So if you're listening to that and you're one of those speakers, do something different. I know people listening to your podcast, they want to stand out in the world and you got to do something different to do that. So, in terms of engagement, right off the bat, we have something called connection before content. So connection before content, Peter Block, a very famous consultant, said, without relatedness, no work can be done. And so something as simple as logging into your meeting early and opening the doors 5, 10, 15 minutes early and just talking to people. Like if you were in the real world, you know how some speakers walk the room and they say, hey, Alex, how you doing? I'm going to be your speaker. I want to know what you want from the session, blah, blah, blah. So you just do some chit chat. And what happens is then when the actual production starts, you as a speaker can come back going, oh, I know Alex, right? He wants to know about awesome baseball hats or whatever it is. And so you already have that relatedness. And so I think that speakers need to engage. In fact, one of the facts that I have, one of the design principles I have, Alex, is that when I speak, I allocate half of the time for the audience speak, 50%. And here's the reason why. Alex, like right now, it's going to be impossible for Alex, as he's talking with me, to be totally disconnected. Well, one is his podcast, but two, right, he would look weird and dumb if he was like texting people, right, in the middle of talking to me in a class. So that's why that principle really works. And then also I find that the people in my class usually have more interesting either challenges or sometimes solutions to the problems than even I have, and that I learn from them. That's how I do engage.
Yeah, great information there. And having the audience engage. I mean, why do they show up to virtual events? Why don't they just watch a YouTube video? Well, they do it so they can participate and they can engage. So great point there, John. Tell me, you talked about some of the advantages to online events. Unpack that a little bit more for me. You said on your website, your virtual meetings can be as good or even better than face-to-face meetings. I know a lot of people are very skeptical of that. Tell me why you think that is.
Well, right now, too, I'm working a lot on hybrid, Alex, and we all admit an in-person event can have the most energy, right? A virtual can have energy, but that's kind of one of the advantages of in-person events. You get a whole bunch of other factors, sometimes smell, taste, or whatever, things that you can't really do well over virtual. But also virtual gives you the reach, right? The reach, but virtually anybody. I've had people on my programs from Saudi Arabia, New Zealand, Australia, and it doesn't matter. As long as they have a connection, Alex, they can be there. And even for me as a small business, now literally I produce meetings all around the world. If it can be done virtually, it can be done for exactly the same cost because you don't have to fly me there. So I think that's really one of the advantages that you have. And sometimes, we said it could be better. Here's really cool. So let's see, Alex, you know what FOMO is, right?
I do.
Yeah, FOMO is?
Fear of missing out.
Right. But have you ever heard of reverse FOMO, Alex?
I haven't.
Reverse FOMO happened during one of the meetings that we had. It was a hybrid. And so all the virtual people were on for something, and we were about to jump to the next session when somebody goes, oh man, the next session got canceled. And it was what's called 5 minutes or fewer, where every participant can present a tip about PowerPoint or presenting in 5 minutes or less. And then all of a sudden, somebody goes, hey, wait a minute. I was supposed to present one of those 5 minutes. Does somebody want to hear it? And so what happened, Alex, is that it was the best 60 minutes of the last 3 years. Because what happened is one person presented, somebody else goes, oh, I can do that too, right? Somebody else goes, I got something. And so for an hour, we got 12 tips that I've never known about presenting in PowerPoint and other types of things like that. The energy was super high. People were jamming. And the best part is the in-part audience had all departed. They were all like at the pool, they were at the bar. And so I text the organizer, his name's Rick Altman of the Presentation Summit, of which I'm the virtual MC. And I go, Rick, you got to log on. You got to see this. So he logs on and he's totally blown away, and he private chats me and he goes, hey, John, can you spotlight me? And so I bring him on and he goes, this is so cool that you virtual, right, created your own culture and that you made it something. And now I have to worry about reverse FOMO. I have to worry about the in-person audience catching wind of this and being jealous of the virtual audience. And so that's how it can be better.
Yeah, I kind of think of it like live sports and sports you watch on TV. I mean, you go to a sports game and the people are this small and there's not the production value. You can't hear the announcers. You watch it at home, HD quality. You got the group chat going. I really love virtual events because of that and because of the efficiency, the lack of overhead. There's so many advantages to virtual events, but a lot of people maybe want to do a virtual event and they may be intimidated, and that's why they work with somebody like you, but you probably go to a lot of other virtual events. What are common mistakes and issues that people hosting online virtual events may experience or that you notice quite a bit?
Well, Alex, you did say this was video, so I just got to give your viewers, right? This is an insight of what's happening behind the scene at my place. I can't even see around the sides is I have up to 14 screens available to me. And usually when I show this to people, they're like, oh, okay, John, you can produce this because I don't have that much equipment. But by the way, though, you don't need that. You don't need that, right? I just show that to inspire you to hopefully do one thing better so you can produce better. But I have literally produced things on a single laptop. And some of the best tools that I'm using right now, I mean, Zoom has still been it. I've tested almost every platform, and Zoom still does many things better. And the most important one, just keeping your audio and video quality going, even when it has problems. Even if it crashes, it will reconnect. So you'll be back in just a minute or two, and it doesn't blow up the meeting. I mean, that's the worst. It's like you have 200 of your best friends online and they all get kicked out. And Zoom has been innovating faster than anybody else. So I think there's some advantage to that. Again, on Zoom, you should look for tools, though. Here's a great one. There's something called PowerPoint as a virtual background. So you can take a PowerPoint deck, open it, and do some of these graphical tricks that I'm doing. Like here, I can change to an ocean. I can change to my backyard. But more importantly is that you can have content back here. Your slides in your slide deck can be behind you so that you are in front of your material without losing presence, because a lot of times you share your screen, become a postage stamp. The other tools, though, I start to use on the outside is I've really expanded the use of open broadcast software, which has this amazing price. Alex, do you know how much open broadcast software is?
OBS, I think it's free.
Yeah, it's free. And this thing is like the power of a television station. You can do so many things with it if you learn it. I call it the PowerPoint of live video because it's about that easy to learn, but some people have been intimidated. And then I pair it with something called a stream deck. So if you come here into my office and you look over here, these buttons that I'm putting my hand over, these things automate all sorts of stuff. I can push a button, play a sound, right? The next thing I can do is come back here and say, let's come back to Seattle. So all of that is on a push button. And that's why people are blown away when I produce something, because I am so fast with something that we can do it in the moment. Because once the moment's passed, it's like comedy. It's like it's not funny anymore. It's not useful anymore. So those are some of the tools that I personally use. Another one that I have here is a mixing board. So a mixing board allows allows me to do things and put music into a program very quickly, and I don't have to push any buttons to share. And this is one way that you can add energy to your meetings.
Wow. What I like about you, John, is that you're very technical. You have really great technical skills along with the presence and the hosting. And so talk to us a little bit about that, about, how to be a host. You talked about engaging with the audience. Any other tips for being a host of a meeting? It's really intimidating for people to go up there in front of an audience of 100 people and own the stage. So how do you go about that?
Well, here, I'll give you some tips from Elizabeth Gilbert. Do you remember a little book called Eat, Pray, Love?
I do.
Yeah, so I got to be the producer for Elizabeth Gilbert. She sold 16 million books and then had Julia Roberts play her in a movie, and she gave the best keynote in the last 3 years. And she did use nothing besides a camera and a mic. She did no technical tricks like I'm doing here, and captivated an audience, so much so that somebody said, I feel like I'm having a one-on-one with Elizabeth Gilbert in an Italian cafe. And there were 650 people online. I'm like, how do you do that? So we tore apart, me and a dozen other top trainers and facilitators and speakers, tore apart her keynote. And we found 8 things, but here, I'll just give you the top 3. Authenticity. Alex, authenticity trumps perfection. I don't care how many ums that you edit out of this thing. Probably you're going to edit that one out. I don't care. But if you get the sense that I am being me, right, that will trump perfection every day. The second one, vulnerability, right? Even before this meeting today, like 4 of my monitors didn't come on for some reason. So I was scrambling, Alex. And it just shows you, though, that that stuff happens to me. Like, I can still get caught on mute. It's 35 years. If you get caught on mute, don't be embarrassed, right? It's not your fault. It's the tech's fault. And the last one is this, storytelling, right? So if you can see throughout this whole call, I've been trying to tell you stories about how stuff is, not just the technical hit Alt X3, 4, F9, right? It's the stories about how this technology is used to make an impact is one of those ways. And so for all of you who are speakers out there, I actually run a class called How to Empower Your Next Virtual Meeting with no additional tech, where we teach these 8 things, and you can be better in your virtual meeting with no additional tech, because the main part about this meeting is you.
Wow. Well, we're going to talk about that meeting and how to participate in that and how to attend that online. But I want to talk about kind of a hot button issue that a lot of people ask me about. They say, Alex, what happens if, there's interruptions, or there's Zoom bombers, or there's a power outage, or you have 100 people on the call and there's a disruption and maybe you're embarrassed by it or it's completely unexpected. I'm sure you've experienced some of those. Could you give us maybe an example, and then how do you deal with those when they happen?
It actually is one of the biggest factors for Zoom fatigue, is when your virtual meetings have technical problems, whether it's your audio or video or something else, because the audience has to work so hard to figure out what is Alex saying or doing. So when we have interruptions, again, I'll use a little storytelling in this case. VP at Microsoft, right? She's just about to go on stage. We see her in the attendee list, so she's logged on early, which is great. She's been prepared. And then about 45 minutes before she goes on, she disappears. Luckily, we have a team. We call it Never Zoom Alone. We had assigned somebody the role of speaker buddy for that VP. And I go find her, right? Go find out what happened. So the speaker buddy, while I'm producing the live meeting, comes around, and then 10 minutes later comes back and goes, you're never going to believe this, right? She goes, the hard line to her power and her neighborhood's internet cut. She can't get to anybody. She can't go to the neighbor's house and borrow their stuff like that. And so she talked her through, and she goes, so I talked her through, what do you have? And I go, I have my phone. How's your cell signal at your house? She goes, it's terrible. It's crappy. I said, how far do you have to drive to get there? About 20 minutes to get strong cell signal? And she goes, do it. So she got in her car, plugged her phone in the charger, started driving to what she knew was a good spot. We had picked up her slide deck off of the server so that we could present it. And she knew the slide deck code so that she could just say next slide, and she knew exactly where she was. And then she reappeared about 8 minutes to go. And then we put her on stage. And what was great about it, Alex, is that she came in and she used that piece of vulnerability, because this was April of 2020, right? Go back in your mind, Alex, like April 2020, none of us knew crap. Anything. And so we had to figure it out. And so sometimes I advocate for having a plan B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. And even when you don't have it, if you have the right team and you have the right mindset of we're going to do this. We do not want to disappoint our people and our audience. We'll find a way. All right. It's kind of like MacGyver, right? MacGyver always found a way that you could do that. And when she went on stage, she used a piece of vulnerability. She goes, I just want to share with you before I start. I'm in my car, right? And she talked about the whole scenario around that. And she goes, that is the spirit that we want our team to have, of sometimes we don't know what to do, but we're gonna figure it out. And she just gave kudos to the entire team that helped her get back on stage.
Yeah, I totally suggest that too. a team, having other people to admit people or block people or mute people or remove people, then having a backup plan, right? What if the slides don't work? What if the person isn't there, right? Being able to be flexible in that or have plans if things go wrong is super important. So team and having other plans, super, super important. Well, John, we're coming up to the end of our time here. You mentioned a class that people can attend to learn how to create better virtual events. Tell us a little bit more about that and how they can find that.
Yes, I host the Engaging Conference, how to create the most engaging conferences, summits, and masterclasses. This is going to be October 23rd through 25th. It's online, and you can take the shortcut engagingvirtualmeetings.com/con for conference, and you can get a free ticket there. And there's also a VIP there where you can get in the front row. We have 10 amazing speakers that I've selected over the past 4 years, the top in terms of creating engagement. And the best part too is you can come to this conference saying, I kind of want to host a summit or a conference or a masterclass, but I don't know what it is. By the end of these 3 days, you will have a complete plan, Alex, about how to host and what the format should be for your conference, summit, and masterclasses based on over 100 years of collective experience.
Wow. Definitely have to attend that to make it easy on everybody. We're going to put the link below to that event. I encourage everybody to sign up. But John, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. We'll have to have you back again soon.
Thank you, Alex.